You know, for decades, we've kind of treated the internet like a place we just rent, right? It's this temporary space we visit, but we never really own any of it. But what if that whole model is just wrong? In this explainer, we're going to dig into a huge shift in thinking, moving from being just a tenant in a digital world to actually becoming a citizen, an owner of our very own digital nation.
So this right here, this comparison, it really frames the entire shift. On the left, you've got Web 2, the internet we all know. You're a user, platforms or destinations, and your data, well, that's the product being sold. But on the right, that's the vision for Web 4. You're not a user, you're a stakeholder. Platforms aren't destinations, they're infrastructure. And your identity, it's a private vault that you control. It's a massive move from being the product to being the owner.
Okay, so to really get why this mindset shift is so important, we got to look at the power structure of the web today. And honestly, it's a story about landlords and tenants.
Let's be real, right now, our digital lives are built on rented land. Our social networks, our identity tools, all our community spaces, they're just destinations owned and controlled by a handful of giant companies. Their boardrooms make the rules, they control our data, and we're basically just living there at their mercy. That is the core problem Web 4 is trying to solve.
So, what's the alternative? Well, this is where we get to the core philosophy of Web 4. What if platforms weren't like private theme parks you have to pay to get into, but more like public infrastructure? You know, like the roads and bridges we all co-own and use every single day? And this means we have to kind of redefine a word we all think we know: infrastructure. In this Web 4 world, it's not just some technical thing in the background. It's about a shift from being a passive user of a feature to an active stakeholder who's building on top of a shared foundation.
Okay, so this new kind of infrastructure, it has three really powerful properties. First up, it's non-excludable. Basically, that just means it's censorship-resistant. Like a public road, anyone can use it. Second, it's a foundation you can actually build on, not just some feature you consume. And the third one is huge. It's decoupled. That means your digital life, your identity, it isn't locked into just one platform. So if one service disappears tomorrow, you don't lose everything. That's a game changer.
So, if we're building a digital nation of owners, the very first thing we need is a way for citizens to prove who they are. And I'm not talking about another username and password. We're talking about a real, honest-to-goodness digital passport.
And the difference here is just night and day. In Web 2, your identity is chained to these platforms. It's a product they own and sell. The Web 4 approach, called UIID, totally flips that script. Your identity becomes universal. It's a private vault for your data that is, finally, owned and controlled by you.
Now, this whole idea is built on this really cool piece of tech called zero-knowledge proofs. It sounds super complex, but think of it like this. Imagine a bouncer at a club asks for your ID. Instead of showing them your license with your address and your full birth date, what if you could just prove one fact, that you're over 21? That's it. That's a zero-knowledge proof. You're verifying a fact without giving away all your private data.
Okay, so now we have our citizens, and they've got these secure cell phone passports. So where do they go to hang out and interact? Well, that brings us to the town square, the public spaces for this new digital nation.
And that's Atrium. Instead of one giant social network that rules them all, think of Atrium as a toolkit full of Lego blocks. You know, things like feeds, groups, profiles, and messaging. It lets anyone build and launch their own sovereign social network literally in seconds without needing a giant budget or a whole team of engineers. And here's the part that's going to blow your mind, especially if you're a creator. The platform take rate? It's zero. Zilch. Nada. Think about it. Right now, platforms act like landlords, right? They take this massive cut of everything you make. Atrium, on the other hand, is built to be a public utility. You just pay for the resources you use, kind of like paying your electricity bill. And you keep 100% of the value you create, every single cent. But of course, none of this digital sovereignty stuff means a thing if it's all running on some centralized cloud service owned by a single tech giant. For this digital nation to be real, it needs a physical, decentralized foundation. It needs to actually exist somewhere. This is where the last two pieces of the puzzle come in. You can think of Tribe as like the administrative office, giving you the business tools to manage your community. And then underneath all of that, you have Arctic. That's the actual power grid. It's a decentralized network of hardware that makes sure the data doesn't just live in one company's server farm, it lives everywhere, which makes the whole system truly resilient.
So when you start putting all these pieces together, you can really see the full picture start to emerge. This isn't just about a new app or a better website, it is a complete paradigm shift. from renting our digital world to actually owning it.
So this is what they call the sovereign stack. It all starts with the physical, decentralized hardware of Arctic at the bottom. On top of that, you build the identity layer with UID. Once you've got identity sorted, you can build your community spaces with Atrium. And finally, you manage the whole thing with Thrive. See how that works? Each layer builds on the last to create a complete, self-owned ecosystem.
It really all boils down to this fundamental transfer of power. In this new model, the roles are completely reversed. You are no longer just the user. As this quote puts it, you are the administrator, the owner, and the ultimate authority in your own digital life.
And that leaves us with one last, really powerful question to think about. If the internet wasn't a collection of private kingdoms, but was a public utility that you truly co-owned, what would you build?